Show me.
Yeah, I got you.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Closer Encounters. I am your host, Clarence Mitchell, coming to you live from somewhere, Minnesota. Would you like to be a guest on Closer Encounters? Or maybe you know someone that would like to be a guest on Closer Encounters. Or maybe you have a story to share. Well, please shoot us an email. closerencounters.info@gmail.com. Again, that's closerencounters.info@gmail.com. For everything Closer Encounters, updates, all things going on, check us out, www.facebook.com/Closer Encounters Radio. Again, www.facebook.com/Closer Encounters Radio. And please don't forget to like, follow, and share. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another show of Closer Encounters. Hey, as you see, we got with us our good buddy Omar. Hello, Omar. How are you, sir?
What's up? What's up? I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. Yeah, I see people are starting to pop in a little bit. I see VJ's back with us. Vida's back with us. Hello, dear. How are you? Fantastic. Yeah. What a documentary. Oh my gosh. I've watched this thing like two or three times. It just totally amazes me. Julie's with us. Hello, Julie. I see she's popping in. Um, yeah, we were talking just before the show started, Omar. Now, what was it you were saying about the time age and the other things there you were talking about?
Yeah, what I was saying is that I watched this documentary several times. I said, I watched it on Tubi TV,
Mhm.
and I found it interesting. And I like the subject of giants and such. So
Yeah.
when I watched this documentary, unfortunately for me, I seen that they only focused on giants that are like 10, 12 feet tall,
Hmm.
and in recent time as well, right? Just like this century actually, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, they were putting out articles that graves were being found and such in Wisconsin and everywhere, all pretty much across the United States. But for me, it seemed like it had only focused on this one group of giants because there's a number of different giants. Now, if we want to really talk about giants and try to get and understanding of it, we would have to go back 44 million years.
Hmm.
Now that goes against, the everything mainstream that they've taught us, that our civilization's only a few thousand years old and yada yada yada,
Right.
right? But if we really look at it, it goes back to 44 million years ago. At that time, the Hyperborean brute race, they were the first physical form of human on this planet. So, and they were giants. These
Hmm.
people were like 50, 60 feet tall, right? So even if you take 18-foot tall people, like they talked about in this documentary, that's like, very, very small. It's like a tiny little midget,
Right.
compared to a real huge giant. And then over the course of 44 million years and up until today, they seems became smaller in stature, right? They went from being 50, 60 feet tall down to like 40, 50 feet, then 30, 40, and then so on and so on over the course of millions of years.
Right.
I know it's a hard thing to get a grip around, but, speaking about humanity, like, at, in these timelines of like 44 million years and such, right? So,
Right.
this topic is like really, really deep. And that's why I really enjoyed this topic about giants. And, and we've had conversations where, I've said that, pyramids are at the minimum, 8 million years old.
Right.
And that goes totally against what mainstream is talking about. I'm not doing that to be a maverick or a rebel.
Nope.
I'm just simply stating that, our humanity, our timeline is much, much older. And we're part of that giant race of people, because
Mhm.
today, we're like 6 feet tall when we started off at 50, 60 feet. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we still have that same connection to this root race. Of course, there's a few root races that have come after that, but we are part of that group of human beings that have lived on this planet for hundreds of millions of years, and we were huge, bro. And that's where the practice of yoga comes from, right? Yoga comes from giants, because when giants, the Hyperboreans, when they first came into existence, because they were so big, they were very clumsy, right? So they were stumbling everywhere, they were stubbing their toes, and they couldn't balance themselves. And, it was tough for them to navigate. So they're the ones that developed yoga as we know it today, so that they can get a control over their body and learn to navigate this huge form that they have. And that's how yoga came about. So then over the course of time, of course, it's changed, but yoga's origin goes back to giants.
Well, I tell you what, though, it's just amazing some of the artifacts and stuff they've dug up, dating back, 400 million years. I was floored when I heard that number, and then the
Yeah,
footprints, alongside of dinosaurs, different other things like that. The giant footprints, of course, somebody
even
had to go
older
and
than that,
confirm,
right?
pretty shitty as far as that goes, why people would do that. But, and then the ones that like Jock showed us there on his show, on your show we did there this afternoon, you know, uh,
Hmm.
things like that. Now, you can't tell me, and of course, we talked about this a little bit last night too, that, the earth has been around a long, long time, and I always said that man walked alongside the dinosaur, that he lived with the dinosaurs and stuff, only because of some of this out of place artifact stuff. Now you take that hammer, which I mentioned last night on our show, with a handle, was turning into coal. You know, that's
That's right. That's
it's
about
unbelievable.
500 million years old.
Yeah, it was like what? 99.9% iron. No additives. All right,
Yeah,
we don't
pure.
even do that. We don't even do that. Crazy.
I,
Yeah,
we
it's a
don't have
remarkable.
the we just don't have the technology to do that today.
No,
So
no,
when
not like
and then
that.
guys like Klaus Dona, right? Klaus Donna, he's discovered artifacts that are hundreds of millions of years old.
Hmm.
There's other people that have discovered artifacts that, go back minimum 500 million years,
Yeah,
right? Or sorry,
absolutely.
at the maximum 500 million years. So this timeline that they're trying to, sell to us is, it's incorrect. It's agenda run. It's agenda driven, and they only want you to think that we're just a few thousand years old. But
Hmm.
yet they contradict themselves, because even in the Bible, when they're talking about the giants, Goliath and David, and the battle of David and Goliath, even that
Right.
giant was really, at the tail end of, the real giants,
Right.
right? Because the real giants, again, we would have to go back like 40, 50 million years, and then, into the days of, I shouldn't say biblical days, because, the biblical story is, a consortment of like much older stories that are like kind of like
Right.
footnotes, right? So,
Yep.
they talk about the Nephilim, and Nephilims are giants, and
Hmm.
but yet the system contradicts itself and says that giants don't exist.
Well, you know what's funny about the Bible, though, when you actually read it, if you go to that chapter in Genesis and actually read those verses about giants, it doesn't give you a timeline. All it says
No,
was there was giants that lived in these days. You know what I'm saying? So you
yeah,
don't know how long giants have been on the earth, during this time. You know what I'm saying? So,
they've always been here.
what's that?
They've always been here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's just amazing, to think about it, and it's just astonishing, some of these dates. Now, the thing that really gets me, um, like the documentary was talking about, how the Smithsonian, places like that were hiding evidence, which we all know they did. It was well documented. There's just too many damn cases of these bones being dug up, too many reports, uh, for them not to bring it out. They even did a show on Ancient Aliens where oh, I can't think of his name now, but the one guy there with the curly hair, not Giorgio, but
Brian Forrester.
nope, nope.
Um,
Dave, I think his name is Dave Childress.
oh, David Childress.
Yeah, he
Some
went.
kind of some kind of hair.
Yeah, he went to the one museum there and was talking about giants and stuff. And the guy goes, "Come on, let me show you something." Took him in the back room, and on the shelf, he had these skulls that he pulled out, and he showed a regular human skull as we know today. And then he goes, "Now look at this," and he pulls out this other one, sits it next to it. Things like 3 times the size.
Yeah.
You know, unbelievable. But nobody's talking about it.
Well, you have to keep in mind that the Smithsonian is funded by, the likes of Rothschilds and Rockefellers, and
Right.
so their entire agenda is to suppress, um, information, because they've given us like a certain type of timeline. Like when
Hmm.
we go through the sausage factory, they give us this, you know, false perceptional history, and they need to maintain that, because the entire populace believes one thing, and they want to keep us in ignorance, right? So, they only have the Smithsonian there more so as like, like lip service, right?
Right.
Like, look, we have it here, we're doing things, and and that's it. But really, their entire goal is to suppress information,
Right. Exactly.
right?
I
And
want to
they're
say hi to Gail. Gail popped in on us. Hello, Gail. How are you, dear? Chunky says Smithsonian hides a lot of things in their vault that we will never see. Yeah, absolutely. And
Well, that's why I feel that they're put into that position. So when artifacts as such are discovered, right there, it goes through them somehow. Somebody's made them an authority,
mhm,
and whatever that's discovered, it gets brought to them, and it gets filtered through them, and then that's where they suppress the information that that we should have, and then they give us the information that fits their narrative.
Right.
Right. So that's how they're filtering this information. So it's a designed apparatus set in place, as a mechanism to suppress information. Plus, it's there as a lip service. Like I said, they've essentially taken a monkey and put a dress on it and put a lipstick on it and said, look, we're doing something. So
yeah, see, well, this is what we talked about, the dumbing down of people. I mean, this is what they do. And it's not that they're making us stupid, it's just they're not giving us the facts or the truth either, so we don't know. And then when this stuff starts coming out, well, now it's harder and harder for them to keep quiet because there's just too much evidence out there. Same thing with UFOs and everything else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The thing is I think it would be a big embarrassment for them to finally admit, hey, yeah, okay, this is what the real deal is. And then nobody would trust them after all that. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, but that's their fault as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's come to a time where nobody trusts them anyways.
Well, that's true too.
We've come to a point of awareness to where people are becoming aware of their sinister agenda and their acts that they've committed against us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming into light, and it's only a matter of time before people put two and two together and start understanding like the subject of this show, giants. Right? Most people are ignorant to it, and being ignorant isn't an insult. Just ignorance means is that you don't have any knowledge. Right? So if you're given knowledge in a certain field, ignorance has been lifted. Right? Yep. So if you learn about UFOs, ignorance is lifted. If you learn about the Sasquatch, the ignorance is lifted. Right? You're much more aware of the subject, and good thing that that's happening right now as we speak. Like, look at all the people in the chat room. Yeah. Right? They obviously have an interest in giants and understand the topic, and that's where it starts, and it's a positive thing.
No, exactly right. Exactly right. Now, I got a question for the folks in the chat room. I do have another video. It's about 29 minutes long. If you would like to see it, we can play it. And it's another, just a short doc, but it's pretty cool. It really is. So I'll let you guys decide if you would like to see it or not. We'll play it, and then we can talk about it. But there is some pretty interesting stuff in this one also, along with some real footage of a person that's quite large. Yeah, yeah. I got one sure so far. So I'll say aye. All in favor? Cool. Yeah,
I'm just trying to find some images here, Clarence, about you said earlier about humans and dinosaurs, living together. And here's an image that I found, and most people will know this. So I'm going to share my screen with you, Clarence.
Okay. So far, everybody says play it. Yes, sure. Okay, cool. We'll do that. We'll look at this picture here, and then, we'll play it. Gail says yes. Dave says play it. Sounds great to me, says Chunky. Cool. All right, let's add this here. Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. I think it could be in Mexico, or it could be in like Cambodia. One of those two places. I know that both of them have it, but clearly we have a dinosaur right here, right? And this is on a temple wall. Right? Let me see if I can find a bigger. bigger
Chris
image.
Wagner says the TV show on History Channel about giants was pulled because they got too close to the truth. Oh, question mark. Was it pulled? No, it was just they didn't talk about it much. I mean, it was like one episode that kind of glimpsed through it real quick, and that was the end of it, you know. And they never went back to that particular subject. So, which is a damn shame. They really should. But yeah, there's the Inca stones. Yeah, and you know, it's funny. A lot of people think these are fake because there's so many of them, which is a damn shame. You know, I don't know what the real story is behind those. You know what I mean?
You know,
But
99.9% chance, Clarence, is that they're real,
yes,
and it's the opposition, the force that's working against us, that the call us pseudoscientists and conspiracy theorists are the ones
yep,
that have inserted this idea out there that these are fake.
yeah,
And
exactly.
other than that, there's no authority in the world that can say that these are fake, because you know there were thousands of these found,
Yes, yep.
right? Like
Well, there
literally.
was a priest, I think it was, that went down there and he offered money to anybody that could give him relics.
Yeah,
You
who is
know,
that? What's his name?
I can't think what his name is now.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He had those metal plates as well.
Right. Yes. Yep.
Oh, look, here's a. Oh, I guess
And they
not the.
claim that all these people all of a sudden started carving these rocks, and that's where all these rocks come from. And I'm like, you know how many rocks a person would have to carve a day in order to make that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's just
yeah,
totally ridiculous. You know?
it
Yeah.
is. It's pure nonsense.
Exactly.
It's just you know, seed that's planted out there, so that when people are coming out of their slumber,
Yeah.
you know,
Disinformation is exactly
yeah,
what
and
it
they
would be.
put them right back into the fog, right? So they
Yep.
remain in that state of you know, disillusion, pretty much, right? Because when people, you know, we've said it many times, you know, there's a lot of predators out there, even in our field,
Yeah.
that you know, prey on people that are coming out of their you know, lifelong nightmare,
Hmm.
and just to emerge on the other side of somebody trying to capitalize off of that, right? You know, I can't stand that. I can see, you know, people selling books that have knowledge and stuff in it, and you know, it's all fine and
Right.
dandy, right? But you know, to me, I find that there's a lot of predatory behavior out there. I can
Dave
call out
says
some.
one thing, Omar, is that people may have found a skeleton or fossils of that type of dinosaur and
Chris,
made that carving in rock. Just an idea. I understand what you're saying, Dave, but there's only one problem with that. Um, they wouldn't know what they look like. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They would know what the bones look like, but they wouldn't know what the actual outside structure of the animal would look like unless they found one halfway preserved, you know, or something like that. But they carved just about any kind of dinosaur you can imagine. It's pretty crazy.
Father Presby.
I think, boy,
Presby,
that does sound right. Yeah.
yeah, Father Presby, Crespi. Man, that's gonna ride me now. Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen because my computer is just, you know, a piece of
BJ
shit.
says they may
For
not
some
have.
reason, it just began lagging the last couple of days, and I haven't really been able to do anything with
Yeah,
it.
I
I'm
think
surprised I can even run a stream right now.
yeah, I think they're throttling us back again.
Jen says extraterrestrials as ancient aliens
Yeah,
wants to
wants to
focus
focus
on.
on. Hey, and you know that very well could be true too, VJ. But here's the thing about the History Channel, Ancient Aliens, is you know now they got the Skinwalker Ranch on. They did the Blue Book. They did the uh, unidentified thing. They also did you know that other one there with uh, you know the GTSA and them guys. Uh, so it's all about the money as far as History Channel goes. And
Yeah,
it's really ridiculous, you know.
I
So,
stopped watching Ancient Aliens, you know, a few seasons ago. They really pissed me off because you know, I've seen with my own self and my friends as well, my family too,
mhm,
that you know, that's it's stolen ideas from me. that
Oh,
nobody was
yeah.
talking about, and I tossed out these ideas as a post on my Facebook and on my group, and
Mhm.
even talked about it on my early streams. And
Right.
next thing I know, a couple of months later, I'm seeing it in one of their episodes, with
Right.
but no credit given, right, and no recognition of any sort. So that, after a few times, and there was a number of times, it just really pissed me off, and I just stopped watching them. I was like, "Fuck this," and from that
Right.
point on, really, I've been really careful, of the material that I share on Facebook now, because
Mhm.
simply due to the fact of that,
Right.
right? Like I have so much compiled on so much stuff, but it's I'm just kind of keeping it close to my chest for the time being.
Right. Oh, Carol. Hello, Carol Ann. How are you, dear? Oh my goodness. I'm glad to see you. She put a link in there. Father Crispy and his
Yeah, that's
missing
it.
artifacts. There you go. Finally
Yeah.
revealed. Cool. We'll have to check that out. I can't click on the link, but yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, Father Crespi. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Chris
young.
says the priest had giant golden tablets that were brought to him by a native who said they were found through an underwater entrance to a cave that was filled with giant artifacts, but they never found the cave. Oh, wow. Carol says, oops, hi. Hi, honey. Gotta love her. Okay, cool. So with that being said, everybody's all in. I'll go ahead and yeah, I missed you too, dear. No doubt about it. Long time no talk. uh, but yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll play this other video. Like I said, it's about 29 minutes. Probably got a couple ads in it, but I'll try to shut them off as quick as I can. Usually they make me run them for about 3 or 4 seconds before I can shut them down. But just bear with it,
Be
and
warned.
yeah, be warned. Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and we'll pull this up, and then I'll share screen. And like I said, this has got some pretty interesting things in it. It's really awesome. I make no claim of copyright to this. Used as
For
educational.
educational purposes
That's
only.
right. Educational purposes only.
Take notice.
I'm saying it out loud. I will put it in the description later. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll share this and hope you guys enjoy it.
Okay, I'm going to mute my mic, Clarence.
Okay. Well, if it will play. Well, that ain't something. Come on. Okay. Oh, doing all kind of wacky stuff here. Come on. Well, come on.
You got to hate that, eh?
I tell you, I really do. Hang on just a second, folks. I'll do it a different way here. Wow. Ain't that some crap? Never
Yeah.
fails. Man, oh man. I tell you, it just, one thing after another. Okay, let me see if I can get it back up here.
You have it downloaded to your computer?
Yeah, it's just, well, it's off of YouTube again, so. Okay. Skip
Copy the link
ahead.
and put it into your 4K downloader, Clarence. Probably download it in like a couple of seconds.
Oh, yeah, probably should. Well, okay, if it doesn't work this time, we'll do that. It seems to be okay now, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, right on.
We'll run it here. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Look at the size of that guy.
Can you make it full screen, Clarence?
Yeah.
In 1848, President Abraham Lincoln visited the Niagara Falls, and he was so impressed by the beauty of this natural wonder that he wrote down some notes, including the following. When Columbus first sought this continent, when Christ suffered on the cross, when Moses led Israel through the Red Sea, nay, even when Adam first came from the hand of his Maker, then as now, Niagara was roaring here. The eyes of that species of extinct giants, whose bones fill the mounds of America, have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. During the 19th century, there were many accounts of unnaturally large skeletal remains discovered in the ancient burial mounds scattered across North America. Today, not a single news media has ever mentioned a thing about ancient giants or past discoveries. If a giant skeleton is discovered somewhere, it would most certainly be classified and hidden from the public. It wasn't like that in the 19th and early 20th century, though. Almost every year, there were at least a few newspaper headlines stating the discovery of ancient giant skeletons. It seemed to be quite normal to find bones of giants in America when the first settlers dug ancient mounds to prepare for roads, farms, and buildings. The New York Times, in particular, wrote many newspaper articles about the discoveries of giants. Let's read through some of them, starting with this one titled The Bones of a Giant Found, which was published on May 25, 1882, and reads, A skull of heroic size and singular formation has been discovered among the relics of the mound builders in the Red River Valley. The mound was 60 feet in diameter and 12 feet high. Near the center were found the bones of about a dozen men and women, mixed with the bones of various animals. The skull in question was the only perfect one, and near it were found some abnormally large body bones. The man who bore it was evidently a giant. A thorough investigation of the mound and its content will be made by the Historical Society. Another newspaper from May 5th, 1885 reads this. Last week, a small mound near Homer was opened by some schoolboys who found a skeleton. Today, a further search was made, and several feet below the surface of the earth, in a large vault with a stone floor and bark covering, were found 4 huge skeletons, 3 being each over 7 feet in length, and the other 8. This article from the San Antonio Express is telling about a giant skull that is twice the size of a normal human, and there is also a picture. The article reads, Beach giant skull unearthed by WPA workers near Victoria, believed to be largest ever found in the world. Normal head also found. That Texas had a giant in the beach in the long ago appears probable from the large skull recently unearthed on a mound in Victoria County. Believed to be the largest human skull ever found in the United States and probably in the world. Twice the size of the skull of a normal man, the fragments were dug up by W. Duffin, an archaeologist who is excavating the mound in Victoria County under a WPA project sponsored by the University of Texas. In the same mound and at the same level, a normal sized skull was found. The pieces taken from the mound were reconstructed in the WPA laboratory under the supervision of physical anthropologists. A study is being made to determine whether the huge skull was that of a man belonging to a tribe of extraordinary large men, or whether the skull was that of an abnormal member of a tribe, a case of gigantism. Several large human bones have been unearthed at this site. Another article from the New York Times, written in 1897, reads, "One of the 3 recently discovered mounds in this town has been opened. In it was found the skeleton of a man of gigantic size. The bones measured from
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. I'm Joshua Phillip, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times.
Censored, all right.
measured from head to foot over 9 feet and were in a fair state of preservation. The skull was as large as a half-bushel measure. Some finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones. The mound from which these relics were taken is 10 feet high and 30 feet long and varies from 6 to 8 feet in width. The 2 mounds of lesser size will be excavated soon." This article from the St. Paul Globe, written in 1904, states, "Bones of a human skeleton 11 feet high are dug up in Nevada. Workmen engaged in digging gravel here today uncovered at a depth of about 12 feet a lot of bones, part of the skeleton of a gigantic human being. Dr. Samuels examined them and pronounced them to be the bones of a man who must have been nearly 11 feet in height." Apparently, these discoveries were something completely normal back in the day, and they weren't hidden from the public as they are today. The discoveries of giant skeletons weren't limited just to North America. This article talks of a giant's skeletons found in a cave in Mexico. The article reads, "Charles C. Clapp, who has recently returned from Mexico, where he has been in charge of Thomas W. Lawson's mining interest, has called the attention of Professor Agassiz to a remarkable discovery made by him. He found in Mexico a cave containing some 200 skeletons of men, each above 8 feet in height. The cave was evidently the burial place of a race of giants who antedated the Aztecs. Mr. Clapp arranged the bones of one of these skeletons and found the total length to be 8 feet 11 inches. Other articles mention discoveries of giants in Europe. This article from 1892, written by the London Globe, tells of the discovery of a race of giants in modern-day France. It reads, "In the year 1890, some human bones of enormous size, double the ordinary in fact, were found in the tumulus of Castelnau and have since been carefully examined by Professor Kiener, who, while admitting that the bones are those of a very tall race, nevertheless finds them abnormal in dimensions and apparently of morbid growth. They undoubtedly reopen the question of the giants of antiquity, but do not furnish evidence to decide it." You have no idea how many more newspaper articles we found. There were discoveries of giants all across the globe, and today, scientists and archaeologists pretend this never even happened. This article, titled When Giants Roamed Earth, talks about the historical discoveries of giants from the time of the Roman Empire to the 19th century. Here's what it reads. The past was more prolific in the production of giants than the present. In 1830, one of these giants, who is exhibited at Rouen, was 10 feet high, and the giant Galabra, brought from Arabia to Rome in the time of Claudius Caesar, was the same height. Phanom, who lived in the time of Eugene II, was 11½ feet in height. The Chevalier Scrogg, in his journey to the Peak Tenerife, found in one of the caverns of that mountain the head of a giant who had 60 teeth and who was not less than 15 feet high. The giant Ferragus, slain by Orlando, the nephew of Charlemagne, according to reports, was 28 feet high. In 1814, near Saint Gernat, was found the tomb of the giant Isolant, who was not less than 30 feet high. In 1590, near Rouen, was found a skeleton whose head held a bushel of corn and which was 19 feet in height. The giant Bacchart was 22 feet high. In 1623, near the castle in Dauphine, a tomb was found 30 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 8 feet high, on which were cut in gray stone the words Cantologus Rex. The skeleton was found entire and measured 25¼ feet high, 10 feet across the shoulders, and 5 feet from breastbone to the back. But France is not the only country where giant skeletons have been unearthed. Near Palermo, Sicily, in 1516, was found the skeleton of a giant 30 feet high. Near Magrino, on the same island, in 1816, was found the skeleton of a giant of 30 feet, whose head was the size of a hogshead, and each tooth weighed 5 ounces. Although back in the days these discoveries were made public, once the discovered skeletons were brought to the respected museums and historical institutions, they completely disappeared and no one ever talked about them again. Here is a map of all reports of giants in North America. It's truly astonishing how many of them are there. Almost all of the discoveries end up in the Smithsonian Institute, and we all know how good they are at covering up major discoveries. There are also supposed reports of the Smithsonian purchasing giant skeletons excavated by citizens, which then disappeared, never to be heard from again. The Smithsonian even had a special division for exploring ancient mounds and supposed giant burial sites. One famous discovery of a giant, which was also covered up by the Smithsonian, is the San Diego giant from 1895, which was an 8-foot 4-inch tall mummified giant. There was even a picture of the giant mummy, which was shown in many newspapers. The mummy was inspected by many scientists. After his inspection, the San Diego giant was purchased by the Smithsonian. 13 years later, in 1908, when the mummy was being exhibited, the Smithsonian ran some tests and suddenly dismissed it as a hoax, saying it was made from gelatin. The fact that it took that long, and after spending so much money to acquire it, plus the fact that it was carefully inspected by experts 13 years earlier, does suggest there may be more to this story than meets the eye. Is it just a coincidence that absolutely every culture and religion tells stories of ancient giants who roamed the earth? The Sumerian civilization, which was said to have begun in approximately 6000 BC, tells of a race of giants which ruled over the Sumerians, and there are many depictions of them. Sumerian records speak of a giant king by the name of Gilgamesh, who ruled for 126 years. He is generally seen by scholars as an actual historical figure, since inscriptions have been found which confirm the existence of other figures associated with him. In ancient Egypt, there are hundreds of depictions of giants, and the Egyptian records describe the old pharaoh dynasties to be a race of tall giants, and hundreds of giant sarcophaguses were also found. but the mummies there had been long looted. This unusual story, with a headline, Prehistoric Egyptian Giants, was reported in multiple newspapers and reads: In 1881, when Professor Timmerman was engaged in exploring the ruins of an ancient temple of Isis on the banks of the Nile, 16 miles below Najar Jafard, he opened a row of tombs in which some prehistoric race of giants had been buried. The smallest skeleton out of some 60 odd, which were examined during the time Timmerman was excavating at Najar Jafard, measured 7 feet and 8 inches in length, and the largest 11 feet 1 inch. Memorial tablets were discovered in great numbers, but there was no record that even hinted that they were in the memory of men of extraordinary size. It is believed that the tombs date back to the year 1043 BC. According to the German newspaper Bild, an entrepreneur named Gregor Spory took a number of photos of a mummified giant finger in 1988. The owner of the finger was a retired grave robber who found the finger in an undisclosed tomb. The finger is nearly 14 inches long, and if it is genuine, it belonged to someone estimated to have been between 15 and 16 feet tall. The owner of the finger had a certificate to say that the finger was authentic, together with an X-ray image. Later, when Spory returned to Egypt to purchase the finger, the owner had disappeared, leaving us only with the photographs of this discovery. The book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament, tells us the story of an ancient giant race called the Nephilim. The story of the Nephilim giants is further elaborated in another ancient manuscript, the Book of Enoch. Apparently, the Watchers, who were fallen angels, interbred with the women on earth, and as a result, the Nephilim giants were born. We know that these ancient manuscripts describe the Great Deluge, a massive flood which, according to
Mating with human women could also be genetic manipulation.
scientific data, really happened. If the biblical flood was real, could the Nephilim giants also be real? The stories about giants don't end there. Every Native American tribe tells of the times when giants used to rule North America, and there were brutal wars between the giants and the Native Americans. The tribes had to unite together against a group of red-haired cannibalistic giants and fought them to extinction. The existence of giants could certainly explain some of the massive megalithic structures around the world, which by now had no explanation of how they were moved, like the Stone of the South at Baalbek, Lebanon, which weighs at a staggering 1,242 tons. On Mount Sharia in southern Siberia, researchers have found an absolutely massive wall of granite stones. Some of these gigantic granite stones are estimated to weigh more than 3,000 tons, more than double the weight of those in Lebanon. It's interesting to note that the original name for Stonehenge was the Giant's Dance or the Giant's Ring. Stonehenge is a later Saxon name that translates to the Hanging Stones. Giants are also part of the Celtic mythology, the Greek and Roman mythology, the Hindus, Buddhists, Norse, and even in the Japanese Shinto folklore. In fact, there's an amazing video from an old military parade in Imperial Japan in which the Japanese proudly show this huge giant and parade him alongside the Imperial soldiers. It's been said that this giant was the last member of a tribe of giants called Cha-Cha, who lived on an island with the name of Hahashima. There are many historical accounts of giants as well. Flavius Josephus, a first-century Jewish scholar and historian, wrote this: "For which reason they removed their camp to Hebron, and when they had taken it, they slew all the inhabitants. There were till then left the race of giants, who had bodies so large and countenances so entirely different from other men that they were surprising to the sight and terrible to the hearing. The bones of these men are still shown to this very day, unlike to any credible relations of other men. During the 1500s, when the Spanish navigators were exploring the coast of the Americas, sightings of live giants were also sighted. 3 captains of Spanish ships reported these taller than average native people on their expeditions to America, as well as Sir Francis Drake, Captain John Smith, and several other notable eyewitnesses. This is what Captain John Smith wrote about them. The Sasquasahanogues are a giant-like people. They measured the calf of the largest man's leg and found it 3/4 of a yard about, and all the rest of his limbs were in proportion. In 1519, Spanish explorer Alonso Alvarez de Pineda was mapping the coastline of the Gulf Coast, marking the various rivers, bays, landmarks, and potential ports. Not far from where the river empties into the Gulf of Mexico, he found a large town and near it some 40 native villages. He described seeing many giants living in this village, and curiously, a race of tiny pygmies was also living there. Pineda described the tribes that settled near the Mississippi River as a race of giants from 10 to 11 palms in height and a race of pygmies only 5 or 6 palms high. Perhaps the most intriguing and widely known tale of real giants in the age of exploration began with an account concerning none other than the great Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan. Between the years of 1519 and 1522, Magellan embarked on his most famous voyage, a bold expedition to search for a good route to the Maluku Islands of the East Indies that would eventually result in the first successful circumnavigation of the globe. Magellan was given command of 5 vessels, and one leg of their voyage took them out across the vast ocean, all the way to the faraway land of Patagonia, at the southern end of South America. It was there that the expedition would come across a rather baffling sight indeed. Here's an excerpt from the diary of Magellan's official chronicler. Leaving that place, we finally reached 49½ degrees toward the Antarctic Pole. As it was winter, the ships entered a safe port to winter. We passed 2 months in that place without seeing anyone. One day, we suddenly saw a naked man of giant stature on the shore of the port, dancing, singing, and throwing dust on his head. The Captain General, Magellan, sent one of our men to the giant so that he might perform the same actions as a sign of peace. Having done that, the man led the giant to an islet into the presence of the Captain General. When the giant was in the Captain General's and our presence, he marveled greatly and made signs with one finger raised upward, believing that we had come from the sky. He was so tall that we reached only to his waist, and he was well proportioned. It is significant to note that the above narrative is taken from the journal of the official chronicler of Magellan's voyage of discovery. That is one person above all others who is tasked with recording and keeping the most accurate records of events and activities, whether exotic or mundane. This person is not only responsible to the commander of the voyage, but also to king and country for his eyewitness accounts as a complete, precise, and accurate testimony of events that occurred during the voyage. Based on his position and responsibilities alone, his first-hand eyewitness testimony of encounters with giants must be taken as factual information by an unimpeachable witness. To do otherwise is to trivialize the importance of the chronicler's fundamental accountability. Years later, in 1539, there was also the account of Hernando de Soto, another explorer, who came face to face with numerous giants during his adventures through the southeast portion of what is now the United States. De Soto had set out from Tampa Bay, Florida, with a contingent of hundreds of men, and during their trek, they allegedly frequently came across tribes of natives ruled by giants. One of these was a Chief Tuscaloosa, who was encountered in western Alabama and said to be a hulking giant of a man who towered over all others. There are also the reports from the Spanish conquistador and explorer Hernando de Alarcón, who is trying to find a river that could be used to move supplies to Spanish troops along the coasts of California and Mexico. Alarcón would eventually make his way up the Colorado River all the way up to the Grand Canyon, and during this journey, he and his men purportedly came across a tribe of around 200 giant warriors standing up to 10 feet tall. The giants were supposedly very aggressive, but Alarcón appeased them with gifts and other signs of peace. The conquistador Francisco Coronado also told of having come across whole tribes of giants during his quest throughout the Southwest in search of the legendary El Dorado. In some cases, there was physical evidence of these giants found, as was supposedly the case with the conquistador Bernal Diaz del Castillo, who served under Hernán Cortés during the Spanish conquest of Mexico. Within the pages of his detailed record of the conquest and subsequent collapse of the Aztec Empire, there is an odd account of a race of giants that were claimed by the Tlaxcatec Indians to have once inhabited the area. The chief of the tribe then provided the remains of these mysterious giants as evidence, of which Castillo would write. They said their ancestors had told them that very tall men and women with huge bones had once dwelt among them. But because they were very bad people with wicked customs, they had fought against them and killed them, and those of them who remained had died off. And to show us how big these giants had been, they brought us the leg bone of one, which was very thick, and the height of an ordinary sized man. And that was a leg bone from the hip to the knee. I measured myself against it, and it was as tall as I am, though I am of a reasonable height. They brought over pieces of bone of the same kind, but they were all rotten and eaten away by the soil. We were all astonished by the sight of these bones and felt certain there must have been giants in that land. There were so many reports of real giants being encountered throughout North and South America in the age of exploration, and such accounts have faded into history to be mostly forgotten. There are some things, however, that cannot be forgotten, as they are literally written in stone. That's the case of the giant footprint of South Africa. This is the most spectacular footprint in rock found anywhere on Earth to date. There are many others, however, like the giant footprint of Pingyan, but none are as fully formed and obvious
Buying from Hibbing Crisis Center is as easy as browse, click, buy. Simply go to the new or used vehicle page.
Commercials.
formed and obvious as the one in South Africa. Discovered in 1931 by a farmer called Stoffel Ketzi while hunting, it has remained one of the most controversial sites in archaeology and geological research. The footprint is about 4 feet or 1.3 meters in length, which suggests that the creature who left it would have been 24 to 27 feet or 7 to 8 meters in height. The footprint is known to locals as the footprint of God or Goliath's footprint, and stories of ancient giants are told all throughout the region. Skeptics reject the giant footprint, claiming it was formed by natural erosion. However, Professor Peter Wagener from the University of Port Elizabeth in South Africa said that there is a higher probability of little green men arriving from space and licking it out with their tongues than being created by natural erosion. Judging by all the discoveries listed, together with all the historical accounts we mentioned, it may be possible that giants really existed. But could it be possible that somewhere in some remote place, a species of these enigmatic beings is still alive, hiding from humanity? We can't end this video without mentioning the most famous giant encounter, which didn't happen in ancient times, but in 2002. This occurrence, which is still classified by the US government, was disclosed in the popular radio show Coast to Coast after witnesses of the event came through and anonymously told their stories. The events allegedly happened in 2002 in the deserts of Afghanistan, where a U.S. Army squad went missing. A special ops task force was sent to find out what happened, and the soldiers walked along a rugged mountainous trail until arriving at the entrance of a large cave. Around the clearing of the cave, there were pieces of broken U.S. military equipment and scattered gear, with traces of blood on them. The task force was about to enter the cave to search for the missing soldiers when a 13-foot tall, red-headed, double-toothed humanoid emerged and attacked them. According to the witnesses, the giant pierced one of the soldiers with his long spear, killing him on the spot before the rest of the squad could take him down, shooting at his face for 30 seconds straight. Once the giant was dead, the task force went inside the cave and found remains of human bones, leading the military to think that the creature was cannibalistic. When this shocking incident was reported to the headquarters, the body of the giant was packed and loaded into a helicopter and transferred to a secret location in the USA for study. The giant weighed about 500 kilograms, estimated by the team who transported the body from the pickup location to the United States. The giant wore a canvas or animal hide to protect his feet, like some sort of moccasins. If there was a living giant hiding for so many years in the caves of Afghanistan without being discovered, we must assume that this giant must not be the only one living on this planet. Surely there must be others somewhere out there. This mysterious creature was caught on camera in the desert of Portugal a few years ago. Could it be another giant hiding from mankind? Thinking about all the classified discoveries out there, we should be lucky to know that billions of years ago, dinosaurs existed. If that was kept a secret, who would actually believe that creatures over 175 feet in height used to exist? And if we know for a fact that giant reptiles, giant birds, giant fish, and giant plants used to exist on Earth, is it so hard to believe that giant humanoids also existed and perhaps still do? We'll leave the answer to you and end this video with this amazing quote from Mark Twain stating, "Truth is stranger than fiction, but it is because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth isn't." Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. If you're new, please subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss the amazing videos yet to come.
Okay, and that ends that. Wow. Unbelievable. Crazy, 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 crazy stuff. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Eh? What do you think about the Kandahar giant?
Oh, man. I'm surprised that they said that, but that's pretty awesome. Also, something else I wanted to mention, the one explorer called them Sachuquias or something. I forget what the name was, but it sounded like Sasquatch, which is what the Indians called them, for Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So it's like, how did he know that? Wow.
Yeah, pretty
Hey,
crazy
I,
stuff.
oh my gosh, we got so many comments here in the chat. It's remarkable. People were talking throughout the show, and that it's just, I love some of these comments. It's fantastic. I want to welcome Ramonica Webb. I see she's here with us. Jody come in. Kimberly Gordon came in. Boy, we got a whole bunch of people here. This is fantastic. We also got Sharon with us there. She's on the YouTube side, which is awesome. Cool. Yeah, let me get up a couple of these things here. Okay, they were talking about how high and how wide these people were. Ramonica says, the dude's chest almost as wide as I am tall. It's pretty funny. Kimberly says, why do they disappear? Did they discuss the site in Mexico that is fenced off and digging is not allowed? No, I haven't heard about that one.
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
No. This is interesting from Jody. She's a admin moderator for the group Ancient Aliens that we belong to. She says, I am a descendant of giants.
Wow, really?
Many of my family are 8 to 11 feet tall.
Wow.
And she says that she will send us pictures, later on. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. BJ says, in the day that these bigger people live, they wouldn't have been considered giants if that was an average height of their people. Shorter people aren't mentioned at all unless it's very small stature and is considered a specific race of people like the hobbits. Okay, cool. Yeah, I see what you're trying to say there. Yeah, they would have been all big people.
It's
Kimberly
like
Gordon.
the midgets and
Right.
and today how they stand out, right? If there was one in the crowd, and it would have been the same thing. Yeah, I see what VJ is saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Yep.
just say, it's like I said earlier, we've just gone from a really huge stature to where we are today, and we might even get shorter. Who knows,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Kimberly
Maybe
Gordon
we're
says,
going back down to micro. Started from micro, went to huge, and going
yeah,
back to
going
micro,
back.
kind of like the one becomes the whole and the whole becomes the one kind of deal.
Crazy. She says, I had relatives on my father's side who were very tall, the Andersons in Brady and Mason, Texas. Cool. Let's see here. BJ says, I would think that if these giants were cannibals, then other tribes would have wanted to get rid of them to keep them from taking members of their tribe for food. And that's exactly what was going on. That's why a lot of them were killed.
Now we gotta, when we talk about cannibalism, we have to, think about it as, were these giants out hunting humans to eat them, like we go out hunting deer and such?
Yep.
Or was it that when they were engaged in battle with the humans, whoever died, they picked them up and they ate them, and it wasn't like a deliberate hunt, right? For me, like if you're out deliberately hunting a group of people, then one, you would run out of your source of food, right? Because you're killing everybody to feed yourself every day, and I bet your appetite would be huge if you're a giant. And if there's a group of you, right, you'd be devouring village after village after village, and soon enough there wouldn't be any food around.
Exactly.
So, is it based on that, or is it based on like war trophies, right? You eat your enemy kind of deal.
Well, we do know that there were tribes, and now these weren't giants, of course, but they were cannibals that lived in the rainforest and different other places, and down in Africa and different other things like that. Matter of fact, I think to this day there still is a few tribes like that, but they're kind of modernized now. They're not so much into eating people, but they do come from a line of cannibals. That's what they did. They go in and attack their other tribe, and whoever they killed, they would eat.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Well, cannibalism was practiced right up until the 1960s in New Guinea. I think it was in New Guinea when somebody died in your family. You dried them out and you ate them.
Yep.
And it's very recent. So for me, when these guys, when they're saying, because you have to remember, half the information that we're getting is misinformation, and the other half that we're getting, we have to read in between the lines, because they're not really gonna just outright tell us, because they're trying to censor this topic to begin with.
Right.
So for them to volunteer information is next to none, from the perspective that I'm looking at. So, like when they try to portray these giants as, they're essentially trying to demonize them, right? Saying, oh, they're cannibals and they hunted humans and they did this and they did that, but yet they're the ones that went extinct, right?
Right.
So what's the story here? If they were so strong and they're chasing the Indians in the Midwest, then how is it that they ended up in a cave with fire being burnt at the other end and suffocating them to death? I see contradiction in the story all the way through, because
Right.
if they were cannibals and hunters and mean ass motherfuckers, then they wouldn't have gone extinct, right?
Right.
So obviously they were hunted, right? So it's the victor telling the story here, right? And saying
Absolutely.
that oh, they came after us, so we had to defend ourselves, so we went out and we killed them. So it could very well be that they set out to kill the giants, to eliminate them altogether for
Yep.
whatever reason, right? Could be religious, could be political, could be who knows, man.
Number of reasons.
But I know
Yeah.
that the story is distorted. It's heavily distorted, especially
Mhm.
on like the type of material that we hear about through the Smithsonian or even independent researchers, because independent researchers are really going off of stories that they've heard, right? And
Right.
they're trying to disseminate it in their own perspective,
Mhm.
just as I am, right? I'm not saying that,
Oh no. Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying that there's a conflict here, because one went extinct and the other one didn't, and
Well, even in
know,
that documentary, she talked about that. The Smithsonian,
yeah,
and and it just goes to prove that they were not on the up and up. They actually went out and they did digs themselves. Just to hide the stuff. I mean, if, nobody else would find it.
yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
crazy stuff. What the hell would be the reason behind that? What is wrong with real history?
Hmm.
I don't understand that at all. I just don't get it. You
And
know,
also, Clarence, when in the video, they mentioned about the mummified Egyptian giant.
right?
Right now,
Yeah.
you have to think about that for a minute. We in our state today would have a very difficult time mummifying a human body.
Hmm.
The Egyptians, they had it down to the cat.
Science. Yeah.
Right? So
Yep.
now let's say, if it's, because we like to give credit to the Egyptians for everything, right? Oh, the Egyptians did this and the Egyptians did that and the Egyptians
Hmm.
did this. Fact of the matter is Egypt is very new, it's just a few thousand years old,
Right.
right? And giants would be far, as we understand them to be, are far older than that. So the intelligence that goes into play here to mummify one of their own, they're just not going to mummify any giant, right?
No.
They're going to mummify an important giant, right? Somebody that means something to them, maybe their leader or a king, or
Right.
who knows, is somebody that's very important to go through the effort of mummifying something or someone, and the intelligence it takes to do that is something, again, this information that we're getting is not crediting them with that, with that ability and that intelligence to be able to carry out something as complex as mummifying a human body.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. Let's see here. Vita says,
Because the problem, hang on one second, the issue is here, Clarence, is that because we found a mummified a giant, we are automatically accrediting that to the ancient Egyptians
right.
without any evidence and without any credence or without any support,
Right.
because we're trained to believe that it was only the Egyptians that mummified their dead,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
We're
Yep.
finding out that's not the case. In
That's
South
not the
America,
case.
it's happening, and
Yep.
other places around the world, it's happened. And then when we look at, so there's that distortion there, right? And then again, these people are saying, oh, an Egyptian a giant, but we don't see giants.
Right.
We're not hearing about giants unless everybody in Egypt was a giant, like the gods, right? And if
Hmm.
all of them were giants, then again, what does that go to show? They were highly structured, intelligent, and so when I see that, and I you know think about them being cannibals and the way that they're being portrayed, it just doesn't make any sense.
No, it
You
sure
know what I'm saying?
doesn't.
It just conflicts again and again and again, and we have to stop giving credit where credit doesn't belong, right?
Right.
Like aliens built the pyramids. right?
Yeah.
Like that type of nonsense, right? It's we have to look in within ourselves and say to ourselves that yes, we've been able to achieve this in the past, and we can do it again. And giants are us, right? So it could be a far more older civilization that mummified that giant, who were giants,
Hmm.
and we're not considering that. I'm just saying the Egyptians are doing it.
Right. Exactly.
That's
Vida says the
distortion.
same thing about the pyramids. She says, with our pyramids, with the enormous structure, could be the answers why they built like this. Many theory giants had built this structure. You know,
It has to be. It has to
of
be.
course it does. Absolutely, it makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You
it
know,
absolutely it does. Like
yep.
6 foot tall humans, hundreds of them dragging rocks across the desert,
I don't
just
see it.
doesn't make any sense.
No.
According to what we have available to us as information, right? It just makes no sense. So I would go more with the giants built everything, like Ollantaytambo down in South America, for
Mhm.
instance. Like places like that, Paraca, right? Like those types of places, and even the Nazca lines.
Mhm.
'Cause they're huge. So for a giant to sit there with his finger and draw one out wouldn't really be and that big of an effort, right?
No, exactly. Yep, exactly. VJ commented about cannibalism. She says it has been found in study cannibalism that it caused what we today call mad cow disease, which affects the neurological system and causes mental dysfunction, seen as a form of madness. Oh, that's interesting.
It's the acids in the human meat.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah, that we can somehow it affects us, and that's known to happen in the Vietnam War when the Vietnamese or was it Cambodia? So I think it was in Cambodia when the Vietnam War was happening. The government there banned food. They criminalized food. You weren't allowed to eat unless the government gave it to you, and people were going around cannibalizing out of necessity, right? Or they were going to starve to death.
Right.
And around that time, you could see that people did start to go crazy. And those effects are even felt there today.
Right.
I worked with a sushi chef who told me a story once, and he said, one of his relatives, they were so hungry, they ran up to a guy with a machete and cut his leg off at his knee, and ran off with it, and brought it home and cooked it and ate it. And I was
Mhm.
like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
We're standing there making sushi, right? And stoning this shit. And I was like, whoa.
Crazy.
That's
Sharon,
madness, real. And he's
Sharon made
Cambodian himself, right?
that's nuts.
I
Sharon
was like,
made a
wow,
comment.
yeah, it was pretty fun. I was taken back pretty good with that one. I'll never forget it.
Sharon made the comment. Says my one uncle, dead during World War II, caught malaria from pygmies in New Guinea. They ate that time, still had heads on sticks. So they were still cannibalism back in World War II. They had human
Guys,
heads on sticks. So there you go. Yeah. Kimberly Gordon says, but why hide the information? Exactly. Why is history hidden? Well, there's a number of reasons, none of them that we agree with, but yeah. Yeah.
well, they hide the information to, give us their narrative, which they've been giving us for
Yeah.
the last so many, hundred and thousands of years, right? It's a false perception. That's why they say we're living in a false reality, right? Because that the loop, right? I call it a loop, the 9 to 5 loop, and that's the reality that they want us to live, and
Mhm.
only be informed to a certain degree, to where like George Carlin said it the best. They want citizens that will take orders, and they want citizens smart enough to be able
Right.
to operate machinery, but no more than that, right? They
Right.
want
Yeah.
citizens, they want them just at that level. And when you look at your society and our society, you look around, everyone's educated to the same basic level, right? Everybody knows the same thing. because they all got wrung out of the same sausage factory that's been teaching the same thing for generation after generation after generation after generation, to where
Years and
it's
years.
become the norm. So when something outside of the cube comes along, like say a giant head, that doesn't fit in the narrative, they hide that information. They don't want you to know, because if you find out, then you're going to question it. And then that's why they've created terms like conspiracy theory and pseudoscience
Right.
and fake news, things like that. We understand that there's fake news, right? But then there's fake news.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like like what you read in your textbooks, that's fake news, because that's created by banksters, right? Because bankers are the ones that finance everything, and they want certain type of narrative given, and they've been following that. And then this all goes back to secret societies and their deeper agendas, and it goes much older than that. It's like conquering the world, right, Clarence? Like we've seen, like Mongolia, Genghis Khan tried to conquer the world.
Yep.
Alexander the Butcher tried to conquer the world. Hitler tried to conquer the world. This game of conquering the world has been going on for like thousands and thousands of years. And this new world order talk that we're hearing about, one world government, is essentially just a new century mask on the same old battle that's being fought for like thousands of years, where somebody wants to take over the world. And it has been happening, throughout history. Some people are glorified, like Alexander. I'm not sure why they call him Alexander the Great, because there was nothing great about what he did. He went on a war path where millions of people died. So I don't see anything great about that. So, the term Alexander the Great, is just a slap to the face of humanity, because the guy was a total butcher. He killed millions of people. He was responsible for killing millions of people. That'd be like saying Hitler the Great. Would you say that?
Yeah, no.
You wouldn't say Hitler the Great or Stalin the Great. You wouldn't be saying that. Bush the Great. All these people, they're butchers. They're responsible for killing millions and millions and millions of people. So they're taking over the world agenda. It's the same old play, man, from Genghis Khan to today. Right.
Crazy.
So that's why they hide information, because they don't want you to be aware of it. They want to keep you in ignorance.
I have to laugh. Chris Wagner. Chris Wagner says George Carlin said it's a big club and we ain't in it. Yeah. There's a couple more people need a stick in the eye. Yeah. I love that guy. He was so cool.
I'll be cruising through for YouTube and I'm across the George Carlin video. I'll watch it.
I do too. He was awesome.
Guy was a total philosopher, man. Total truth speaker, that one.
Boy, he was truth, though. He was truth. That guy, he hit it right on the head every single time. He was
I like it. I like his religion ones too, right? Those make sense.
Yeah.
The 10 Commandments, how he crunched them down to like one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Only one commandment. Yeah. Well, you can get rid of the lying thing because everybody lies. Yeah, it's funny.
I like how you say, just said word after word after word after word. Like, wow, man, just only he did something like that. Nobody
Exactly.
else, right? Nobody.
It's too funny. Wow. Vida says, with our humanity starting from the dinosaur age, giants had to exist. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you stop and really think about it, when you got animals that big, everything's that big. Trees were that big. I mean, look at the trees from California and stuff. The red oaks or whatever they were called, giant oaks. On and on and on. Everything in the world was giant. I mean, we're in the land of the lost.
What if the giants actually had dinosaurs as their pets?
Hey, you never know.
Somebody had a T-Rex.
Yeah.
Somebody else had something else, and they would have been large enough to have had pets like that. It would have been like a dog to them. Imagine you're like 60 feet tall and you got a T-Rex that's only like 15 feet tall. That'd be kind of like having a Great Dane.
Yeah. Well,
Right,
did you hear that last documentary? You know, she was talking about the ones that were 30 foot, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, Omar just talked about that, you know. So there you go. You know, the other
And there's
one that
much color in that too, Clarence. It's that was a great documentary. I enjoyed it because it really hit on
yeah,
some points. But on the other hand, it like I said, it kind of went along with the same mainstream state of thought
right.
where they're cannibals and giving credit where it doesn't belong and
Hmm.
demonizing them rather than exploring the subject unanimously or unbiased and
Right.
trying to see both sides of it. To me, it seemed like they'd picked one side and that was it. Said, oh, they're
Yeah.
cannibals and they're this and they're that and blah blah blah, but they didn't explain the giant story of what they think they may have gone through and
Right.
how they've survived through time. And to meet an end like that is like quite sad, actually.
I tell you, I wish there's a way of getting more information on something like that. You know, of course, our hands are kind of tied when it comes down to it. You know what I'm saying, with that kind of stuff. Uh, Now, that last documentary I did show, it had a lot of really good pertinent information in it, no doubt about it, Um, and it had, newspaper clippings, it had pictures, the one film of the guy there in Russia. Wow. Uh, you know, even in the Guinness's Book of World Record, what was the tallest guy? He was 8 foot something.
Yeah, something
You
like
know,
that.
I mean, just on and on and on it goes. You know, it's just crazy stuff. But
And then the
yeah,
Kandahar giant,
right,
the
yeah,
Kandahar giant, that's I could see that more being on the cannibalistic side because it doesn't appear by himself.
right,
It doesn't appear to be looking for vegetation, especially out in Afghanistan. It's a desert, man. Its surface is like that of the moon,
right,
right? And it's been the world battleground for thousands of years, so it's been pummeled down into nothing. So I could see that Kandahar giant like picking off people wherever it saw one and grabbed one, right? And then
yeah,
probably ate. Not very good, right? Because you ever seen an Afghani, right? They're
yeah, yeah, exactly.
they're pretty thin, man.
Yeah,
There's no
they're not
meat on
much
their
to
bone.
them. Yeah, I'll crush his bones to make my bread. Jack and the Beanstalk, big story for us kids. Um, now where did that come from? Jack and the Beanstalk. Why would they make such a thing about that? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there is lineages that even us, in our time, talk about giants. With things like that. It's kind of crazy. But
We would really have to explore the status and of a giant. Like, what would you consider a giant? Right?
yeah.
We have basketball players that are like really tall. Would they be considered giants?
Now, see,
Uh,
to some people they would be. Look at
yeah,
Andre the Giant. The
yeah,
wrestler.
yeah,
People like
exactly.
that.
Or
They
that
he
what's
big
that
man.
Chinese basketball player?
Yeah.
That guy's like 9 feet tall, or 8 feet tall, something like
Yeah.
that.
Wears a size 30 shoe.
Yeah, like Shaquille O'Neal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's like 8 feet tall. So, like, would those people be considered giants, or would they be considered humans and that are just really big boned?
Well,
Right?
it
Because there's
depends on
three
who
different
you
bone
talk to, I
structures of
guess.
a human, right? There's,
Yeah.
that we know of. There's small, medium, large. So, could they be the extra large, or does it have to do with, the weight of the giant as well? Because you could be like 12 feet tall and weigh 130 pounds and
Right.
just skin and rail. Would you be considered a giant?
Right.
So we would really have to define what a giant really is
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
before we
That's
can.
right. Ramonica Webb. She says Paul Bunyan. Another story
Yeah,
in our fairy. How about the old lady that lived in a shoe? Right? Now, how big of a shoe would you have to have for an old lady to live in? It'd have to be a giant, right?
yeah,
Same kind of thing. So there are, uh, you know, fairy tales or whatever you want to call them, stories, in our time, fairy tales, whatever you want to call them, that actually depict giants. They talk about giants all the time, you know.
So what do you do when you live in a shoe?
Yeah,
You move
exactly.
to a boot and get laced.
Keep it tied. Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, when you stop and think about it, there's a lot of stuff like that,
What about
David and the
mental
giant in the
giants?
battle. Yeah, crazy stuff. Wow. How about the
There's all
Jolly
kinds
Green
of
Giant?
giants. What
What's
about
that?
mental giants? There's throughout time there have been mental giants, like Da
Sure.
Vinci, for instance.
Yeah.
He was a mental giant. So
Yeah.
would that be considered part of giantism? Because really, it has to be explored, because there's different types of giantism. In my, from my perceptual view, for me, physical doesn't really matter, right?
Right.
Like, you can be 2 feet tall and be the smartest dude on the planet, or you could be, the biggest and the dumbest, or the biggest and the smartest. And,
Right.
we have to define what giant is.
Hmm.
Right? So far, digging up bones and doing things like that, right? It's just, to me, that's like 1D um, research and information that's available, right? But once we learn about 1D, then we can move into like 2D, 3D, and really start to discover the civilization of the giants and what they really were, right?
Right.
How about the frost giants of Norway and Sweden,
Right.
right? There's all kinds of them, and we have to understand their culture and the technology that they had. Because look,
Hmm.
man, if they built the pyramids, that means they're pretty smart,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So who were they, right?
Yeah.
What were they? Where did they come from? Those are the types of things that we should be really exploring, right? The archaeological side of things is just one single aspect
Hmm.
of the research. That's why I called it like 1D, right? Because we're really focused on just one part of it and not really trying to explore the bigger picture of it, right? It's like looking at
Right.
a pixel on a painting and being content and saying, "Oh, okay, I understand the painting now," when you only looked at one pixel, right?
Hmm.
You don't know what the whole thing looks like. So we need to step back and really explore this subject with a very open mind,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
be adapt to a different train of thought consistently while researching this type of subject, because it's really, the whole thing is a speculation. No one's you know right, no one's wrong, because we're
Well, when
all.
you got explorers, like she was saying, back in the day, just right after Christopher Columbus discovered America, you know, um, and a lot of, that are in our history books, we know about these people, you know, but how they would write in their diaries about these giant people that they've come across and, different things like that. It's just totally amazing, I don't think they would use the term giant unless they were really freaking big. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, I would think they would probably much rather call them, taller beings or something of that nature, or I don't
Well,
know. But to
there's
come
that
right out
stigma,
and say a giant, you know,
there's that stigma attached to the word giant.
right,
Just as there's a stigma is attached to UFO, alien abduction, and crop circles, and
right,
things like that. There's a stigma that these people have attached to it, and
yep,
so if you're researching, and the minute you say giant, they'll blackball you, right? Or
right,
they won't publish your stuff, and they'll
yeah,
ridicule you, and so it's kind of sad that's the case.
yep,
Like, really, well, how are we supposed to learn when that type of structure has been developed and put into place as a check mark to like information that we can get as a civilization,
hmm,
right? Like human civilization, man.
right. Now, they mentioned also in that particular video about the Nephilim, how they bore, they took women as their wives and they bore, these babies that turn into giants. Now,
Misinterpreted.
I'm almost going to say so because there's no way that a woman of our stature is going to mate, for one thing, with a giant. Okay, it's just virtually impossible.
Imagine the size of the dink that the giant would have.
Well, I was just thinking that. Well,
It'd be
I
like
don't
the
know,
size
but,
of my leg.
I hate to say it this way, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, we can't sugarcoat things anymore, Clarence, because
yeah.
we've sugarcoated things so much that people have become desensitized to the truth. So if we're going to talk about things, we
Sure.
just have to just be straightforward. And if people can't handle it, well,
Right.
then they have to question themselves and say, why can't I
Yeah.
handle that? Right.
See,
So
that's just it. Because, what I was going to say too, when you're talking about the birth canal of a woman, now a regular child in today's society, 10 centimeters, right, is the size of the head. And they still have to cut a lot of women in order for the baby to be born, unless they're doing all cesarean, who knows? But I can't imagine having a giant's baby in somebody's natural body. I mean, come on, you're talking double the size of the head when it comes out as a baby. I mean, you're not going to get a giant out of an average person's skull. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's got to be born with at least a 20 centimeter head, if not bigger.
Well, Clarence, this kind of goes back to the discussions that we've had in the past about, where I've said that our women, they've been abducted and,
taking the eggs and
their eggs have been genetically modified.
Yep.
And, and I think due to that, this story of these watchers mating with our women, is just a metaphor of saying that these watchers, these alien beings, reptilian beings, genetically modified our women, and that's how they mated with us, because they took a part of our DNA or part of their DNA and inserted it or took it out by creating a hybrid human being. And that's the only way for our species to even be able to mate with a essentially an extraterrestrial. That'd be like mating with a dog, right?
Yeah.
You don't see a monkey screwing a baboon, right? You don't see a gazelle getting laid by a horse, right? It's just it just isn't. And the same thing goes with a human being. This avatar is developed in one way, and it's only meant to mate with itself, right? Like its own similar avatar. You can't have an extraterrestrial or a different type of avatar come in and begin to mate. I just don't think it works that way. So genetic engineering is again, it's my only, because it seems to be just a select few women that they've picked as well, these watchers.
It seems that way.
So, so these women were probably inserted, genetically modified, so that when the baby comes out, it comes out as the size of a human, but when it begins to grow, it accelerates in growth, and and then it becomes like a demigod kind of size kind of deal, right? So
see, Chris Wagner made a point too. He says that Andre the Giant's mother gave birth to him. Yue Ming's mother gave birth to him, and that's true, but you have to remember the giants we're talking about, they these guys are 12, 15, 18 feet tall, or if not more. Andre, now what was the height of Andre? He was 8 foot something. Sure. What was he? I forget now. Let me see if I can find that. I'm just curious now. Let me see here.
The giants we're talking about are like 25, 30 feet tall.
Yeah.
Right, 40 feet tall. And this prior to this precessional cycle, I think the giants that that they're showing in these videos are just an extended relative of the human being, as we are today, right? Just slightly taller.
Let me see here. Let me try something.
Because that's the only time, really, Clarence, is we see we don't see a giant civilization coexisting with the human civilization. It doesn't seem to be
No.
that way. It seems to be patches
Right.
here and there. It seems to be that the giants have come to the end of their, lineage, I would suppose, like a part of a root race,
Right.
right? Where it's come to a complete and it's finished. Just like the Atlanteans, the Atlantean root race, it served its purpose and it came to an end. And I think the same thing would happen with this giant,
The giants.
where
Yeah.
they came to an end at a certain given time, where there was a lot more of us around than them, and because we live in perpetual state of fear and in a dense, distorted vibrational field, that we just simply hunted them to extinction out of fear that because of their size, they could come and eat us, they could do this, they could do that, let's just go out and kill them. And I think that's what happened. And and
Yeah.
I would have to see something otherwise to even denote the fact that what we're talking about of these 7 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet people, that they're not actually giants. They're just tad bit bigger than
Just
we are.
bigger. Yeah.
And
Big
just like I was
people.
saying, there's a small bone structure, medium bone structure, large bone
Right.
structure, and they could be an extra large bone structure. And that extra large bone structure are guys like Andre the Giant and Ming, what's his name again?
Yao Ming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guys like that, right? It's just that's what I feel that they are,
Yeah.
right? They're nothing. I don't think they're related to actually the
A giant. Right.
real bona fide giant race that lived here at one time.
Let me see. Just out of curiosity, how tall was Andre the Giant? 7'4",
Yeah, and that's not really very all that tall, man.
and he
I
weighed 529 pounds.
I
Woo!
worked with drywallers that are like 6'8", 6'9",
Right. Yeah.
right? So
Build height was 7 foot 4 inches tall. Shoe size was 24 inches. Weighed at 529 pounds. Yeah.
somebody out there want to Google and see how tall Shaquille O'Neal is?
Here, I can do that right here.
Let's compare that with Andre the
How
Giant.
tall is Shaquille O'Neal? Okay, here we go. Oh, Yao Ming was 7 feet 6. Shaquille
Okay.
O'Neal was 7'1". Kobe Bryant was 6'6", and LeBron James is 6'9".
Well, how about Michael Jordan,
Well, let's see. here.
Magic Johnson?
How tall is Magic Johnson? 6'9".
Yeah, so would they be considered giants?
Yeah.
Right? I guess to us, when we're only 5'8",
Well, that's
I'm
just it.
5'8",
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
To me, that's a giant. When I see a tall drywaller, I think to myself, "Fuck, that's a giant."
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 7'2".
Who's that?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, 7'2". Jeez.
How about that Chinese basketball player? He's like the tallest basketball player in the world. I forgot his name.
Here, let me see.
I
Who's the
think he
tallest basketball player in the world?
I think he played in the Chinese league and then came to the NBA, and he might have gone back.
Gorge Marizan, 7 feet 7 inches.
Wow, that's pretty tall.
Yeah, 7
That's
feet
taller
7.
than Andre the Giant and
Yeah.
Yao Ming and Shaquille.
Yeah.
What about that other basketball player, that really weird one that wears wedding dresses and stuff?
Oh my God.
You know who I'm talking about?
What the hell is his name? I know who you're talking about.
It's really freakazoid, that dude. I like him. I forgot his name. He actually went to North Korea for a basketball with Harlem Globetrotters.
Right. Yeah.
What is his name? Anybody out there know who I'm talking about?
Oh my goodness.
How tall is he? He's been in a few movies as well. He's great. I like him. He dressed up as a drag queen one time.
Rodman? Is that it?
Yeah, Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman. Yeah.
Yeah, how tall is Dennis Rodman?
How tall is Dennis Rodman?
Right on, David. You hit it, buddy.
6'7".
Oh, that's not that bad.
That's not big. Yeah.
You know, that's just like an
Yeah.
average height.
Michael Jordan was 6'6", and Scottie Pippen 6'8". Yeah. So there you go. Cool. Yeah. Wow. A lot of information.
So there is like some remnants of the giant race that's left behind. And like I said earlier, when the Hyperborean 44 million years ago, when they formed,
Yeah.
we are a part of that, right? Like we are, an evolution of that, civilization, and we still have remnants of it in our civilization today. And just by just these few names, and I bet there's many out there who are not famous and are, there's stores out there for giants, big and tall,
Right.
where big people go and shop.
Right. That's
DNA,
true.
yeah, exactly, Vita. Right, that's exactly what it is. The genetic structure.
DNA
carried on.
genes. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's amazing stuff. But the timelines is what gets me, when they're saying 400 million years, like, holy shit,
That hammer, right? That hammer.
Yeah, well, not only that, but the
there's
axes,
other artifacts.
yeah,
other
the
than that
axes
kind of
and different other tools that they had that are out of place, the tool
Yeah.
handle alone is 8 foot tall. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely made for somebody big. It ain't, yeah, the damn thing's got to weigh 500 pounds. Oh my God, crazy.
It's really difficult, for somebody that's coming into, awakening, like lifting of ignorance, and
Yeah.
it's very difficult for them to understand even the idea of like human civilization being around for 400 million years, because they've been taught,
Mhm.
one particular thing. Just think that's just one artifact that they found from 400 million years ago. Right now, imagine how
Right.
long the actual civilization was around to actually even have gotten to a state of technological advancement to develop a metal like that, because that's some really extreme metallurgy.
Yeah.
And for it to develop into that stage, we were talking about that earlier. You were saying that it was like what was that, copper or not copper, but
Oh no, iron ore, 99.9%. No zinc.
yeah,
No fillers. Yeah, 99.9% iron. Period. We can't even do that by mistake. You know what I'm saying?
imagine how long
Yeah.
it will take us. Eventually, we'll be able to do it, but imagine how long it will take us to get to that point.
Oh, they've been trying for years and years.
Yeah.
I worked in the steel industry for a long time, and because you have to extract it out, you see, because iron ore has so much other stuff in it, and
Mhm.
in order to get it that pure, you got to extract all that other stuff out. So for this piece of hammer to be 99.9% iron, somebody knew metallurgy like no business. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you can't get no purer than that. That's ridiculous. That's unheard of.
Yeah, and
You know
that's
what I'm saying?
that's exactly what I'm saying, Clarence. Like,
Yeah.
imagine how long it's going to take us to get to
Yeah.
that point where
There's no
our
way.
metallurgy will be able to do,
Mm-mm.
what they were able to do. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, and then to, being 400 million years old, add more time to that for that civilization to develop into, that state, how long it would take. So 400 million years, 475 million years is a bare minimum. And that is very difficult to, wrap your head around that as to, wow, we've been around that long,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's a big leap, right?
Exactly.
And a
Yeah.
hard landing too, because once you realize it, then you're like, man, that really solidifies the fact that everything that you've been taught is a lie.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. BJ says, although the Bible does say they took wives, so I assume that they were men at the time. I still believe that they have the ability to choose being that they are immortal, which means they still exist. And it's very possible. Yeah. Chris brought up a good point. The samurai sword that's on display. How large would that individual have to be? You know that one
Yeah.
sword. Let me check something here.
Oh, speaking of swords, that would be kind of like William Wallace's sword.
Right.
You know, that
Yeah.
sword is like 7 feet long.
Yeah.
You know, 6-7 feet long. It's displayed in a bar in Scotland, I think in Edinburgh. And you know, imagine how tall or how big William Wallace would have had to be to wield that sword.
It's crazy.
Single with one hand or with one arm, anyways. You know, because in battle,
Largest
lots of
samurai
shit's going
sword.
on, right?
There it is. Norimitsu Odachi.
Share your screen with us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's see here. Share screen. Chrome tab. Share. Here we go. Is that full screen for you?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah. And it says here, Japanese longest sword measured 377 centimeters and weighed 14.5 kilograms.
Wow.
Huge Japanese sword, probably the largest ever forged on Japanese soil. Ha 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 ha. Yow.
How big the person would have had been?
Let's see if it shows an image here. Is it still on? Is it still sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Look at that. Can you see
Wow. Yeah.
it? You got to be kidding me. You couldn't even pick it up. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Whoever was wielding that sword was a
Ugh.
big mother.
No kidding. It doesn't say how old it was, though. I'm wondering how old it was, if they ever actually dated it.
I wonder if they just formed it as like a display kind of.
Let me
Look up
see.
William Wallace's sword, Clarence.
What was that?
Look up William Wallace sword.
William Wallace?
Yeah, William Wallace.
William Wallace sword. Oh, let me go back to all here, see if it shows it. William Wallace sword, there
Right
it is.
there in that showcase, I think. That
Yeah.
first one on the first row. On the far left.
Right there.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Oh yeah, look at it. There's a woman standing next to it. Let me see if we can get a.
Yeah, let's see that one.
Here's a guy. Let me get one of a guy. He's got to be around 5'4", 5'5", 5'6", 5'7". Of course, it's up in the air, so it's about as tall as he is, basically, if it was on the ground. So that's that's almost 6 foot tall sword. Yeah.
You'd have to be a big person to wield something like that.
I
right?
can't
With your
imagine.
shoulders on you, your
I
neck,
couldn't
your
imagine.
arms, your biceps and triceps, and you would have to be seriously strong and big.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's crazy.
Nothing you'd want to encounter on the battlefield.
I guess not. Nope.
Kind of reminds me of that scene from the movie 300, where Leonidas got into a fight with that big ugly monster beast. The one that he stabbed through the arm. You know the one I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah. I just had it too, right when you said that.
Just YouTube it. It should be there. Let's see that part because look at how big that dude is.
Oh, let me
That's
see
about
here.
like what you'd see on the battlefield of these guys that are,
I can go back to the.
carrying these swords around, right?
Let me go back to history.
That's
Let's
the only
see.
thing that can really, sum up to,
YouTube. Here we
like
go.
an example of how tall the person would have to be.
Oh
wield-
yeah, that's right. The one you talk about, they had the film of, right? The guy that they were parading down the street.
The which?
The guy that was in the street. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the movie 300.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're saying.
You know the movie 300,
Yeah,
where they
yeah,
go to defend the pass against the Persian army,
right.
and then they got into a fight and they released that big giant.
Yep.
And eventually the giant lost his head. But what I'm thinking is that somebody, about that big would have been carrying a sword like William Wallace's sword there, right? That's the closest example that I can see that we can physically see, even though it's animated, but, it's a good reference point to imagine a human being that big,
Let me see. I can find a
wielding
picture
a
of it
big ass
here.
sword like 6 feet long. Like, wow, man. That's taller than me, and I'm 5'8".
That's the one he cut the head off, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Leonidas, he got a cut on the eye too, that guy.
yeah.
I'm thinking it would be something about that big, possibly just slightly bigger, wielding a sword like that. Dangerous. Let's see that scene.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is that the guy? Oh yeah. Okay. This is the guy that they brought in on the chains.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Let's see if he has a clip here. Oh, come on. Don't do that to me.
The Spartans, yeah. Yeah, Julie's got it there, the Spartans.
Yep, the Spartans. Yeah. Trying to see if they got a video clip of this.
Yeah, Chris Wagner, yeah, Braveheart. Mel Gibson played William Wallace. Great movie, one of my favorites. Every time I watch that movie, I see something different, and I probably watched that movie, I don't know, 700-800 times.
Right.
Yeah, I love that movie. I just love the story of it.
I'm getting closer. I got pictures and stuff of him. I just got to find the video clip here. Come on. Be down here. Videos. Here we go. Okay. Let's see here. 300 Rise of the Empire. Is that it? No. Just 300 movie trailer. Let me scroll through it here and see if this is it.
Here, I'll send you a link, Clarence.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the private chat, I found it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, here, I'll send you the link. It's in the private chat.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only getting a just a very short clip. Okay, let me see here. Oop.
It's about 4 minutes long.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me share screen. Cool, awesome. Share audio. This
So
will
the
be
dude
cool.
wielding the sword, like the William Wallace's sword and that other samurai sword, the person would have to be at least minimum about this big, if not a tad bit bigger compared to our modern human, right? I mean,
Right.
Spartans were, you know, Italians, and Italians are not very tall.
Ah,
Oh, come on.
that's it. Ah,
I guess there's a part 2 to that. Yeah. Oh no, that's
well, hell.
but anyways, it's an example of a giant, right? And
Yeah.
that's about again, this goes back to what I've been saying earlier. They're portraying giants in in a very demonizing fashion in a way, and they're not really giving them the credit. And as we've seen through that so-called Egyptian mummified giant, that these people were quite complex and were extremely intelligent and were very advanced. And that's not what they're showing. Like, look how they made the giant appear in this movie 300, really ugly, right?
Yep.
Scarred up, and just not portrayed in a very positive light, when it's only being shown from one side and that's it, right?
Yep.
And that's the perception that the general public has about giants too. Oh, they're
Exactly.
cannibals and blah 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 blah, right? It's through examples like this that we can try to understand the other side, right? And then go and
Right.
ask ourselves, why are they showing them like that? What's the agenda behind that? Because we know these people have an agenda with everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Crazy. Wow. Well, anyway, that's about 2.25 hours we've been running here. So,
Time flies.
yeah, it's almost binging time for me. So, but anyway, yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this evening and the shows that, the videos and stuff. Posted links to them in the chat room and stuff like that. So, go back and watch them, archive them, do whatever. Share, but
Download it.
yeah, download it. Exactly.
Download it, because this is a touchy subject, and you just never know with Facebook. And if they take it down, just upload it again.
Exactly. Yeah. David Rooker made a comment a while back. He says our next episode, what did he say? Something about being dwarfs and stuff there. So yeah, just the opposite of what we were talking about tonight. Yeah. Next episode will be elves or dwarfs. Cool. Hobbit.
That would be an interesting subject.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually there are little people. I mean, there is a place, Hawaii, on that one island where the gnomes, they whatever, they actually had a whole race of small people that lived
Really?
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. True story. Matter of fact,
Chris
who did?
Wagner made a good comment there.
Who did?
Chris Wagner.
Oh, Equal Time.
Yeah,
Midget wrestlers.
even if a human were to grow to that size, I find it very difficult to believe that they would be able to pick up that axe up with one hand. Think about how difficult it is for one of us to hold a sledgehammer by the end of the handle straight out, and it only weighs 12 pounds.
12 pounds. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it ain't
that-
going to happen. Not by any means. No.
Even an 8-ounce hammer.
Exactly. And I used to do roofing back in the day.
Yeah,
and I
that's what I'm saying. Carpenters and roofing.
no
Even
doubt.
that gets pretty heavy after about 20 minutes, half an hour.
Exactly.
That's a great point, Chris.
That's funny. Well,
That
anyway,
goes back to what I was saying earlier. You'd have to be really strong. right? Really big, really fucking strong. To
Exactly.
wield the sword like the ones that, just a couple examples that we saw earlier, right? So, mega strength and mega big.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome stuff. So anyway, folks, we'll keep you posted on this stuff. Hopefully in the next couple of nights, we'll do another show here. Figure out what we're going to do, but we definitely want to get our cryptid thing set up so we can do our Bigfoot, which is part of this ordeal with the giants too. Right along with the rest of them. But the Bigfoot and Mothman and fairies and different other things like that, all the cryptids, I like to talk about Chupacabra and different things. It's going to be pretty awesome. So we're going to get that set up for you, and we'll do a big show on that. So, and I see a lot of folks are leaving anyway. They're all, getting kind of tired. So that's cool. Good deal. So anyway, Omar, any last thoughts or anything here before we take off?
No, man. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for having me, and stay safe out there. Fight the thought police, and resist. And it's time for a revolution. And let's band together and organize a global protest, kind of like the yellow vest, but on a global scale, every major city in the world, and demand that the central bank is decentralized and not entirely abolished, but decentralized, and power given back to the people, and demand our human rights, and ask for a change, because what's happening to us right now is inhumane, and it totally goes against what human beings are. It's kind of like taking a bird and putting it in a cage. It's cruel, and we're being treated extremely unfairly. We're being deceived and lied to, and I think it's about time that we grow a backbone and grow some balls, and and stand up together, because together we're stronger. There's a few of them. Remember, there's only 1% of them, and there's 99% of us, and we're allowing one dog to essentially herd us around. And we're much bigger than that. We are, remember, we're infinite consciousness. We're infinite awareness. We're everything that there ever is, ever was, ever will be. So to be treated like this is not right. That's so let's put together a global protest where everyone comes out and go and stand in front of your parliaments and keep it peaceful, because we don't want to show them that we're violent, because we're not. We're asking for love and compassion and empathy, and then to respond with violence would totally contradict what we stand for. So let's go out there and let's make it happen. Let's organize something and start fighting back. Exactly. That's it for me.
Okay. Cool. Well, like I said, I'd like to thank everybody for being here this evening. We'll keep you posted. Just keep an eye out for our next date. I'm sure it won't be much longer, a couple of nights, hopefully. And, we'll get something put together for you. But in the meantime, stay safe and, take heed. So, okay, everybody. Thank you so much. And please share and like and do all that cool stuff, Let everybody know that, we got good things coming. So.
Always do.
Absolutely.
Unique stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff, right? I like the original and unique content, and seeing the same old stuff all the time kind of gets boring, right? It's like watching somebody reading cards.
Exactly right.
Every day.
Good night, everybody. I want to thank you all for listening to Closer Encounters. Please remember to like, follow, and share. And until we meet again, keep your eyes to the skies. Thank you.